Oh.
I would do
He
this.
wants to do Embry Riddle for global security and intelligence, hopefully play soccer, and do a 6-year commitment to the Air Force.
It's the small.
And he won't
Yeah, but
serve
it
under
makes
one
all
of the
those little
candidates.
steps
So
add up.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't blame you.
She's still a little shaky after getting out of.
It's getting crazy.
we are a military family. My husband's
Just
retired.
You're never gonna get a fingerprint off of me. My fingers are just too warm.
Stand up one step.
They could take them forever, but they're never gonna get a set of fingerprints. I'll go back and talk to them again.
So yeah, I'm certified.
But
I don't know.
I don't think they can.
The original
They're just
Obamacare.
worn off.
It's,
Well, and also,
everything hinges on our country's future on this election, but that's just a personal opinion.
No, I agree 100%. I just said it's fun to care.
Well, I will go see them.
Why are we not?
Talk to the
But
police
y'all can
department.
look at
Maybe
this.
they've got better
Y'all follow this
techniques,
direction.
better,
Absolutely.
they used a finer pad
My
perhaps.
generation is the 60s.
I can remember.
Make peace, not, you know, and all that, and we just,
available.
and I can still remember President Nixon saying, you know,
Good evening.
paraphrasing,
Let me
he
let
said,
you
you know,
in.
Rome fell, the
that's a
5
good
reasons
thing.
Rome fell.
And you
I
can
remember
crowd
the
your back
last
to your
years,
corner there.
we've gotten away from all that, so I went ahead and
Was there a purple?
looked online for the book, and I downloaded it by Edward Kinley.
Couple months ago.
Rise and the Fall of the Roman Empire. I'm not sure that's the name, but I looked for the 5 reasons, and there it was. And then it had something to say about the Christmas, which is what I'd like to quote if I get around to writing a letter.
I wasn't at the September meeting either.
He said
It
the
was the one
Christians
before
were at
that.
fault for letting it happen because they didn't do anything. And so
You know,
just one
A long
sentence
time ago.
said it all.
Pardon?
There are other places.
well, after that,
I think
Baby
for them,
boomers. started
they
the
already have propane there.
Just disappeared.
no discipline.
There wasn't
Everybody
anything
That's
critical
right.
on it, you know, no.
I
And
don't see how they're gonna change.
I don't operate that way. My family doesn't operate
They
that way.
probably
Like,
got asked.
Right.
No national
but-
security
and we're
problems or
people-
anything, so.
We can't find anyone in the millennials between 20 and 25 that will
Not unless you call goofy postings on Facebook critical.
physical work that's required
To
and show.
lower
And
their
it's
price
just,
and sell some of it.
Well, I learned that now by asking questions with the city, you know, I just don't
I
want
didn't
to
see any
find
problems
what's
with
going
tonight's
on.
stuff, did you? Did you read your
You know,
packet?
some
already and
restaurateurs
everything?
came in and people, and they said, well, you can't find this place.
Did you read your packet?
Oh, yeah. I always read it on the internet.
Yeah.
And I just print off the agenda and bring that in.
And I'm thinking,
Well,
well,
I
who's
was
raising
doing
those
that
kids?
because they have it here for
My
us. So
generation.
unless I have notes or something I want to ask.
And I
about.
think I just read something within the last 2 or 3 months, it goes back to the
But it all seemed
psychologists.
pretty, normal tonight, anyway.
In the
you know,
50s or
normal
60s,
stuff.
who said you shouldn't discipline
What
children.
I usually
Right.
do
And I'm
is
trying, I
get
get
to
out
say, and I drive by each one of
So,
them.
okay, and so my generation got up on that along with her.
And
Make love, not war.
figured that
And it's just
everything
like, okay, what type of love do you want to make?
right, and now we're entitled.
These are the people that
30.
I really wish Ben Carson
go out to,
didn't get wiped out.
government agency or private practice.
Go
But
back
James
and
said it
forth.
was a
Well,
considerable
and I heard,
packet.
well, see, it's the people of faith too. The Baptists had their convention and they didn't want him to speak, he was scheduled to speak.
that's something I
The guy before her
All the detail of
And I think,
was in charge.
oh,
Of service.
know what it
He was
is.
superintendent of schools.
Anyway,
yeah, I'm thinking,
Oh, we're waiting
She
on
got the
something.
job, but she didn't want to be superintendent of streets.
I missed, I wasn't able to come to the last meeting. Okay, never mind.
I'd like to call to order November 1st, 2016 regular meeting of the Chino Valley Planning and Zoning Commission. Claude, would you lead us in the pledge?
pledge allegiance
To the flag
of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Lane,
Here.
Commissioner Bacon,
here,
Commissioner Van Wolfen,
Here?
Commissioner Baker,
here.
Commissioner Pasiak,
here,
And Chair Merritt?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Sloan is absent this evening.
Okay, we'd like to move on to item 4, the minutes. Consideration and possible action to approve the September 6, 2016 regular meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review them?
Mr. Chairman, I have to abstain since I was not at that meeting.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve the minutes for the September 6, 2016 Planning and Zoning meeting.
All right, we have a motion. The second.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, staff reports.
No staff report at this time.
Thank you. All right, we'll move forward to the public hearing portion of the meeting. During this portion, everybody will get a chance to speak. You'll be limited to 3 minutes. And any questions will be directed to me, and then I'll direct them to the appropriate person. So we'll move forward with item 6A, consideration of possible action to hold a public hearing and to recommend to the town council adoption of ordinance 16-824 to rezone approximately 2.49 acres of real property located approximately 448 feet north of Road 4.5 North and approximately 1,000 feet west of State Route 89, and also known as Yavapai County Assessor's Parcel Number 306-05095M, located within the northwest quarter of Section 4, Township 16N, Range 02 West, Gila and Salt River Base and Meridian from single-family residential 1.6 acre minimum to single-family residential 1 acre minimum zoning district.
Good evening, Commissioners. The applicant is not yet at the meeting. I would suggest that we table this until after item D and then move to the next applicant.
I don't have any problem with that.
That would be the CUP for Chuka.
Okay, we'll move to item 6B and come back to item 6A later in the meeting. Consideration of possible action to recommend to town council approval of a conditional use permit for approximately 5 acres of real property located at 1151 East, Road 4 North, Yavapai County Assessor, parcel number 3061700, to permit storage of up to 6 pieces of heavy equipment, tractors, backhoes, etc., in AR5 agricultural residential 5 acre minimum zoning district.
Yes, good evening, Commissioners. I'm trying to get, here we go. Before you have an application from the Chukas to rezone or to be granted a conditional use permit for storage of heavy equipment on their property located at on East Road 4 North. They have been storing equipment there for about 6 years now that is affiliated with their excavation business. Storage of heavy equipment like that, it needs to be by conditional use permit. They were unaware at the time that that was what was required. When it was brought to their attention, they immediately came in and applied for a conditional use permit. This parcel is zoned AR5. Like I said, this use has been in place for 6 years now. The neighbors have had no complaints. The Chukas have had no complaints, and the town has received no complaints. They've held a neighborhood meeting on August 29th, 2016. There were no objections, and the conditional use that they're proposing would be in compliance with the zoning and with the land use designation under the general plan. You can see this is the parcel here. There's the zoning. Whoops. Like I said, all they need is a conditional use permit to continue doing what they've been doing to bring them into compliance with code. They mailed letters as they were required to do. No members of the public attended their meeting. The town has not received any comment outside of the neighborhood meeting. The general plan conformance, again, is medium-density residential. This is certainly fitting within that, and they're not within a community core that would require any special zoning consideration. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. The applicants are here if you have any questions of them.
Does anybody on the board have any questions? It's my understanding that just from the area there that there is equipment storage places around in that area, not by their property, but very close by, so it seems like it would fit pretty decently in there.
Correct. There are larger agricultural zone tracts. There's a lot of AR in that area, and a lot of those people have tractors, backhoes, equipments like that. That is their own personal equipment that they store, as opposed to being associated with a business.
Okay. Would the owner like to come up and speak? Sure. Like to welcome Councilwoman Chuka to our meeting.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners. I'm here to explain exactly what we're doing is we've had this use, and we actually made contact with the town when we were here. I've lived here like almost my whole life, but we moved away for 2 years to go to our farm in South Dakota when it crashed and it was too cold, and we came back. And when we came back, I consulted with the town, but at that point, the economy was so low that we at that point only had one piece of equipment, one backhoe, and the backhoes are primarily on site. And actually the backhoes are considered a farm equipment. So they actually, you can actually park backhoes on your property. But the dump truck was not, is not considered farm equipment. But anyway, at that point, the town was like, we don't, and I can't even recall who I spoke with. They said, unless we get a complaint, we're probably not going to respond. So we just continued on our way, and in the process, the economy recovered. We are now currently at 2 backhoes that are generally always on site unless they're brought home for maintenance. And then we have a backhoe trailer and then the dump truck. That's the heavy equipment. And then we do have also a skid steer and a skid steer trailer that's parked there when it's not on site. So that's pretty much it. The location, I don't know if you want to go back to the site map where it actually shows the aerial of the property. Sorry. But I just wanted to confirm, just because it is a little bit deceiving, we own the property next door as well, and so it's all livestock. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Yeah. So the equipment, if you can see where that little round pen is in the center of the property, right there, that's where the equipment is. The backhoe and dump truck are typically parked. So the closest housing would be, there is housing over here, but it's separated by this livestock parcel. There is a house over in this vicinity, way back here, that you can't see, and a new one under construction, owned by the same people. This property is vacant. This property is vacant as well. And then there's a piece over here that's out of vision as also. So I know 4 North is intending to go through to the industrial park eventually, and will have heavy equipment traffic on it probably quite frequently. So I don't see that we're an impact there on the road. We haven't ever had a complaint. My driver is careful not to, cause any problems when he's turning in. So it's really, I haven't had any problems, so that's that. Do you have any questions?
Anybody on the commission have a question?
I have a question, but I'm not sure it's really all that important. Do you do your fueling and stuff on the lot there, or do you do it off-site?
We fuel at Bennett's is like right down the street.
That's what I thought, okay.
Yeah,
All right,
so
thank
we
you.
fuel at Bennett's. We do carry fuel in our trucks, but it's not for our equipment there. It's for equipment on site.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thanks.
Any discussion? I'd like to entertain a motion for this.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend to Town Council that approve a conditional use permit for storage of up to 6 pieces of heavy equipment at 1151 East Road, 4 North, as stated in the application.
I second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Do you want to just keep moving forward with the agenda?
Sure.
Okay.
Say it was not to.
We'll move forward to item 6C, consideration and possible action to approve a conditional use permit, CUP 16-002, to allow for retail propane sales at a commercial light zoning district.
Yes, before you have an application from Olson / Sishka Investments, I have to say it slowly, requesting conditional use permits that they can sell retail propane sales at their site on the south end of town, just north of 1 South. The proposed location of the tanks is in this vicinity. They have a tank on site right now that they use to fuel their propane forklifts. So they would like to be able to continue, if they're going to have it on site, they've had inquiries as to whether or not people can buy propane from them. They would like to be able to expand their business and do so. The ordinance requires that the fire marshal approve the plan, which the fire marshal has approved, and that the facility be built to fuel gas codes, which it has been. So staff recommends approval of this use. It's a conditional use permit just so they can sell propane in a commercial light zoning district. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. The applicant is here if you would like him to explain anything.
Anybody have questions for Ruth? Would the owner like to speak?
Good evening. I'm Mike Olson, president of Olson's Grain. And
Sir, would you mind pulling the microphone up, because the lady will yell at us if you don't.
okay. Mike Olson, president of Olson's Grain, and thanks for the consideration of this proposal, and I would just simply answer questions if you have them.
I have a question. Will you have to expand the facility very much to do the retail sales that you're anticipating?
No, it's in a pretty open area there, and we're going to improve some access to it, so if people wanted to drive up with RVs and that type of thing, horse trailers that require propane, we're just going to improve that. But it's pretty wide open right there where it's at. It's kind of south of the store building, which is the one closest to the highway, and then the one immediately to the west of it is the feed mill building, and that's where our customers typically, drive back there to get loaded up with products. So,
thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead.
I'm always the one with the questions. I'm so sorry. When you talk about improving it so that folks can get back there with the larger vehicles, is it going to be a circle around this facility to go back out to 89, or are y'all going to use that dirt driveway that goes south?
So it's kind of a preference to the customer.
Okay.
If they are going to travel southbound on 89, most people go out the front entryway. If they're going to go northbound, they use the back entryway, which is the gravel road that comes out on 1 South. So
Okay.
it's just set up so they can go either way, just their choice.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, how large would your propane tank be?
I don't have that information. Yavapai Bottle Gas has installed it. It's fairly large. I'm guessing here, but maybe like a 1,000-gallon tank or so. And it's not a vertical tank; it's a horizontal tank, so it doesn't stick up in the air it's maybe 5 feet tall, and it's anchored on a cement slab right there with all the controls. And APS came in and installed a meter right adjacent to it for the power.
And all this stuff was done through the fire marshal's specifications, and it's passed all its inspections.
Yes, there is one project left before final inspection, which is the barricades. The bottle gas company, Yavapai Bottle Gas, is installing those barricades. They're on site; they just haven't been installed yet.
Okay.
And that's what the fire marshal asked for.
Any other questions?
Yeah, well, that's just one more. Is this going to be Olson's only, or are you partnering with Yavapai Bottle Gas for resale?
They are the vendors, so they simply put the facility in, and then then we buy the gas from them, and then retail the gas. The people would have to obviously bring bottles on site to be filled. We won't do any outside of the property sales. Did that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I used to work in propane, that's what
Yeah,
I was
okay.
asking.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion.
You got to read into the mic there.
I move to forward conditional use permit 16-002 to allow for liquid propane gas sales in a commercial light zoning district for the applicant to town council with a recommendation for approval.
Okay, have a motion. Have a second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, moving on. Item 6D, consideration and possible action to rezone approximately 61.3 acres from commercial light to industrial. This is going to be the adoption of ordinance 16-824 to rezone that's not the right one.
It's zone change 16-006.
Okay, my paperwork didn't have that on there. Okay. Bear with me here.
Sure.
It's zoning change 16-006. Go ahead, Ruth.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Merritt. Before you have an application from Kurt Wells to rezone 61 acres that he currently owns out in adjacent to, just immediately west of Old Home Manor, from its current zoning designation of commercial heavy to industrial. The first parcel is this. No. The first parcel is what we call the Q parcel, which is this parcel here. We've buffered that within 500 feet because to show you how far that boundary goes, because medical marijuana cultivation is use in industrial zoning. So to show exactly where this parcel is and where that boundary would be, I included that in the site map. You can also see the surrounding zoning. To the east is public land that is all property owned by the town of Chino Valley. The property immediately abutting the subject parcel has been designated for development as an industrial park. The property to the northeast, the AR4 portion, is part of the Wilkinson Ranch. The smaller square on that, in that AR5 right here, right now, is an APS substation, and this is property that they had previously had approved for a solar installation. So there is, even if that the balance of that property of Wilkinson's were to be rezoned or developed in the future, there is still ample buffering between any use on Mr. Wells's property and the neighboring future AR or agricultural or residential development. This would be the second parcel right here, which is the P parcel. Again, same thing, commercial heavy, want to rezone commercial light. The property surrounding it is largely privately held. The state of Arizona owns this parcel to the north. It is not zoned. It carries no zoning designation right now. Again, the Wilkinson's property, this is all town property. Mr. Wells owns this. This is already zoned industrial to the west. The wash is here. So there's quite a bit of separation from the these parcels to any residential uses to the east. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Mr. Wells, rather than send out or have a neighborhood meeting, the applicant sent letters out to the 4 surrounding property owners that were not him. The town has received no comments or inquiries as to the rezoning and has received no objections. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Mr. Kazicki is here on Mr. Wells' behalf. He can answer any questions that you may have of Mr. Wells.
This property, if we go to commercial heavy, it would be available if the owner so chooses to be used for marijuana cultivation. Is that correct?
Right, and I need to correct myself here. It's commercial light going to industrial, not commercial heavy. But yes, medical marijuana cultivation is one of the uses that is allowed in industrial. However, if we were to have additional cultivation, this is the kind of site where we would want it. It's away from the general public. It's in a remote location. It's not close to any housing. It's in what is largely an industrial area. The industrial here on this side was zoned industrial prior to the incorporation of the town. So this has long been that sort of use out in that area.
Anybody have any questions for Ruth?
Can I see a general plan designation map?
Sure. Can we go back to that other? Yes. Yeah, general plan designation for this. It's adjacent to the industrial park development right here. Whoops, come on. So this parcel is located right in here, which is designated for commercial investment or commercial use.
Could you bring it up just a little bit further, please, so I can see the legend at the bottom?
Sure. This would be the commercial floodplain, greenway, I gotta read it from this way, greenway corridors and aggregate areas.
So it is consistent with the general plan, correct?
It is consistent, yes.
Okay.
There is quite a bit of commercial property around that area, and some
yes.
of it is industrial already.
I believe Mr. Wells owns most of that.
Pardon?
I believe Mr. Wells owns that industrial.
That is correct.
Any Anybody have
Mr.
any
Chairman,
further
I
questions?
just have a comment, and I'm trying to recollect the community's response to marijuana and what we indicated to them regarding potential future locations in the town for marijuana growing facilities. Can someone help me out on the commission? What was said, or?
We didn't want it near Highway 89.
I'm sorry.
We didn't want it near Highway 89, right?
That was for the dispensaries, I think. We wanted them located 500 feet back.
Okay, then I don't
Well,
remember.
Correct.
I think you're trying to, okay, thank you. I think you're trying to make a decision where it's not necessary. It's a question of, are we going to allow the rezoning or recommend the rezoning to the council? And then if it is decided that someone wants to use it for cultivation, well, then the criteria of what we've already recommended and what the town has approved would have to be met.
You're exactly right, Commissioner Paziak. This, all we're asking tonight is whether or not to rezone the property. Medical marijuana is one of many uses. Gravel mining and extraction is also a permitted use in the industrial land use and in the industrial zoning designation. Mr. Wells actively mines gravel on his properties. It's only one of several uses. The only reason I bring it up is because it seems to be the most questioned use. Is this a use? Yes, it is a use. This is how it would impact the surrounding area. If we can go back, can we go to that other map, Amy? Yeah, just here. There we go. Oh, I've got it now. So you can see that the bulk of the buffer is way up here. Mr. Wells owns this property, this. He has some bottom in the wash. Like I said, this is all town, this is all ranched, this is all state land, this is all state land. So this really is, if we have to accommodate this because it's an approved use in the state of Arizona, it's a legal use. And by accommodating it in a remote location like this, it's better sited here than in a more active industrial park or industrially zoned area.
So the intent for the zoning that we have instituted is if we are forced to deal with this, which we are by state law,
right,
that we isolate it as much as possible
Correct.
in an area.
Right. This kind of falls in the same category as slaughterhouses and sexually oriented businesses. Nobody wants them, but they're legal, so you have to find a place to put them where they do the least harm. So this is a location where that would be the case. Now, that being said, I have no indication that that is what Mr. Wells intends to do.
I doubt. Mr. Wells' character is well known in the community, and somehow I don't think he'd make a great marijuana farmer. But somebody else could purchase the property at some point.
That's entirely
We have to
true.
look at that. But again, the remote location, and it is surrounded by other like properties.
Correct.
Any other questions? Any statement?
I'm debating right now.
Yeah, me too. Could the representative for Mr. Wells speak?
Sure.
Yes, certainly can. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address.
Good evening, council members. My name is John Kazicki. I'm with Realty Executives of Northern Arizona, and I'm representing Mr. Wells. I am a resident of Chino Valley at 2810 North Navajo Place, so I also do reside here.
So, anybody have some questions?
I do. You're representing him as a realtor. Is it his intent to sell the property?
Correct.
So we're asking to rezone it and then sell it?
Well, a portion of it is currently listed for sale. the Q parcel. The Q parcel is listed for sale for $1.75 million right now.
But that's a separate parcel from the one we're looking at, am I correct?
No.
Both parcels.
Parcels in the zoning designation. I want to be clear here, like I said, the only reason I brought this up is because this is, that the medical marijuana question would come up. Whether or not Mr. Wells decides to keep the property or hold the property does not have any bearing on whether or not this is an appropriate zoning map change. There is nothing that he has proposed that is contrary to the zoning ordinance, and we have really no legal basis to not approve it or recommend approval. It's in compliance with the general plan, so there is no basis for us to deny.
Anybody have a statement they would like to make or questions?
I'll make a statement. I accept Ms. Mayday's comments, and legally I won't object to approving it. I do have concerns, though, that being rezoned and then sold could lead to that, when we did tell the public that the industrial zoning was only in a small portion of the town, and they seemed satisfied with that, and council voted on it. That's just my statement.
And that shares my concern, and thank you for bringing that out, Commissioner Annie, because that was my recollection, that we represented to the community. There are only so many places in this community that we can put marijuana. And we come on board, and it's been my past experience, even though that we don't have a very firm basis for denying this, is that in the past, in the jurisdictions I was in, is that any community promoting development would have a person come in with a viable project with a potential site plan analysis showing, hey, this is what we would like to do with the property. It'll bring development to the community. Would you please rezone this? And the community would just say, hey, this is great. This increases our tax base. Let's go. But if I recall, we had the large marijuana currently growing facility. Community had some concerns about that, and we just emphasized that this is what it's going to be in our community. So now we're just opening the box here, because the Chino Valley area is prime marijuana growing territory. It's just, that's been acknowledged 20, 25, 30 years ago. So I just have an internal conflict of what was represented to the community, and now we're just going to open up 60-some acres, and even though it's in compliance, I'm kind of struggling with it.
It was 1 year ago, actually. One year ago is when we forwarded it. Okay, no more questions for me.
Anybody
I have a question. You're representing the owner of the applicant as to the rezoning request. You're a realtor. Is this rezoning request, will it have an impact on the marketing of the property?
In what fashion? No, I mean, it's for sale right now.
Okay, so even if it were continued to be commercial light, it wouldn't have an impact on the marketing and sale of the property?
Well, in the sense that it would elevate the property to its highest and best use, yes. It would have a significant ability to market the property in a more powerful way, absolutely. And it is abutting parcels of land that are zoned in this fashion already. So it's not doing anything unusual in that area.
Anybody else have any other questions? Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Ruth, could you step up, please? I have a question.
Uh-huh.
From what I hear from the commissioners in sort of an unspoken way, and I also share the concern myself, is that we're placing, if we approve this zoning on the open market of property, which I know there are other properties there that could do the same thing for future marijuana cultivation, and we've all heard responses from the citizens of the community about this issue. If we, just for hypothetical question, if we did not approve this based on what everybody stated here this evening, what liability is the town going to accept if we vote against it?
So if you say vote against it, and first of all the Planning and Zoning Commission is doing is making a recommendation to the town council.
Correct.
This is part of the process. The town council makes the ultimate decision as to whether or not the property gets rezoned. Secondly, so town council can consider some of the commission's decision or their opinions, none of them or all of it. That final decision lies with town council. We are getting on rocky ground here and getting ahead of ourselves when we are considering what might happen with the property in the future. While I understand the obligation that you feel to try to mitigate any negative or uses that could somehow be viewed as negative for expansion into the future, the simple fact is that we cannot possibly rezone or not zone property based on what might happen in the future. There may be medical marijuana cultivation there, there may not. There may be a gravel pit there. There may be a small manufacturing facility. There could be an asphalt plant there. Those are all uses that are permitted in an industrial zoning case or zoning designation. So I think we're a bit remiss here to focus solely on the medical marijuana. Would planning and zoning's actions directly impact? It would have an indirect impact. Mr. Wells would have to go through the entire process and then turn around and take action against the town. I do believe that, yes, we are on shaky ground in denying this simply because the community doesn't want it. Just as the community doesn't want it, Mr. Wells also has private property rights, and Arizona, as you well know, is a very strong private property rights state.
I understand what you're saying, and I think for the commission, and I'm not going to speak for everybody here, but mostly for myself, that I would like to do everything in my personal power to stop medical marijuana from expanding in Chino Valley, but that's not my position here tonight. And I see the properties around this place having the same zoning, and I'm not sure that it's the right thing to do to not rezone it, but I also have great reservations, especially seeing how the owner's representative basically indicated that it was going to go up, for sale, or maybe is for sale, and this zoning. If Mr. Wells was going to hang on to this property for some time, that would sort of shade my thinking, because I know his reputation. But if somebody else buys it, we don't know who that person is. Again, I understand you're saying we can't really say no legally because everything is falling into place, and only a moral stand would defeat it.
Well, and the other issue that we need to consider that I haven't mentioned yet is the fact that we do this is immediately adjacent to the infrastructure improvements that the town is undertaking at Old Home Manor to install sewer and water up Jerome Junction Road and Tree Farm Road. So it may or I cannot tell you specifically what this property will develop as. But we would be remiss in denying it simply because we did not want medical marijuana on it.
Not only from a business sort of standpoint, but just a legal standpoint.
Correct. There is no reason to believe that the infrastructure that is going, like I said, that's going sewer and water going up Jerome Junction, and then west across Colorado Way, or 4 North. So it is certainly, Colorado Way splits the 2 parcels that are under consideration. It's certainly well within reason to believe that those could be developed as a heavy commercial or an industrial use as well.
Ms. Mayday, when is this going to town council?
December.
Anybody have any other questions or statements they want to make?
Yeah, I have a comment. You know, I asked if the zoning change would have an impact, and I was told it would be a benefit to the current owner as to it would be a more valuable piece of property. So the reverse of it is also true, is that it could be sold as a commercial light, and then the new owner could come in and request the industrial, and we would have the same situation of us looking at it and saying, can it be made industrial? I hesitate to say, let's change the zoning so that the current owner can make a larger profit when and if it's sold, and right now it is on the market. So if it's on the market for commercial light, it can be sold as commercial light, and then if the new owner wants to change it to industrial, he can come in and request it. That's only a comment, so.
Which raises a question for me. If we were to take that stance that we don't want to approve this at this point, it's a what if. I don't think we have the right to hold back the current owner from making a more profit on his land just because we're taking a moral stance on we don't want marijuana being grown in our community. Does that make sense?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Whether or not Mr. Wells makes any money selling this property or not is not something that the commission can consider. It's not within the purview of the commission. The commission needs to be looking strictly at the land use and the zoning designation. All of the uses are potential uses. The property was not even considered for sale until we talked to the Mr. Kuzicki about the extension of sewer and water. So to focus solely on the medical marijuana use is a mistake. When this was run through council, or when we discussed the medical marijuana issue with council, the council attorney, the town's attorney advised council that it would be possible in the future to rezone property, and if we did not have a legal basis for stopping it, we have no way to stop it. It's the individual's property rights to ask for this to be rezoning or to be rezoned, and if we have no legal basis to not do it, other than we don't like the use and we don't want him to make any money, we're straight on the tracks to a very bad place.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. I understand what Ms. Mayday is stating on this. However, I've been in situations before where speculation just drives rezoning. And anytime you have a rezoning, that residents are notified of all the possible uses that can be on that property. And when they're notified of all, such in a case like this, of all the uses, if a use comes across that they don't like, they could say, no, we don't want that. And they can say, we're not taking away your property right, because you can use your property right now and it's consistent with the zoning. So I'm a little avant-garde in this, in my thinking here, but that's my thinking.
Anybody else have any comments?
One last comment. I don't think we would have even had this discussion if the presentation hadn't mentioned marijuana and put out the perimeter of that it did meet the criteria of medical marijuana. But
And I would agree with that. If I may, I'd like to make a statement. Bob, would you like to speak first?
I can. It seems to me that Chino Valley is in such a state of flux right now. based upon everything that happened last year and all of the controversy we had and the ordinances that were passed. We as Planning and Zoning Commission are not supposed to have a moral stand. We're supposed to look at strictly the law, the factors, what it affects, whether the zoning will affect adjacent property in an adverse way. Those are the kind of things that we should be considering. But on the other hand, we have a statewide election coming up that's going to change the thinking of a lot of people in a couple of weeks. We have a new city council coming in.
1 week.
Pardon? 1 week, I know. Well, it'll take another week for people to figure it out. But
Yeah.
I actually think that because of all of the ramifications, we would be better off tabling this for 1 month. And then I think we can look at this with a different set of eyes to see whether it should or should not be forwarded to the city council. The only option we would have, I think, to fulfill our obligation would be to send this to the city council with a statement stating just about what I've said. It's not our position to judge the morality of this. On a straight business situation, this rezoning makes a heck of a lot of sense. Yeah. It's absolutely the right thing to do for the property from a business standpoint. Well, we all know what kind of trouble some of us got into last year trying to convince the city council that that was a proper attitude. I don't think that anything that we do is going to be the proper thing, frankly. But I would suggest that we either send it to the city council with a strong letter to table it until emotions die down enough so the city consider really what their destiny is in this business. Or we should simply table it for further discussion next month.
As much as I'm on the side of the other commissioners about allowing medical marijuana or recreational marijuana to expand its operations in our town, I don't believe we have a leg to stand on. And I think we would be wasting our time, the property owner's time, council's time, by trying to take a stand in this fashion. If I could turn it down, I would. That's all I have to say. But I don't think we're helping the situation by, for lack of a better word, protesting it right now. I just don't think we're not going to be able to stop it, is what I'm saying.
We as the P&Z Commission cannot turn this down on a moral ground.
That's right.
Correct.
We can't. We have no power to do that.
No, may I add, this is correct. However, dependent upon the land uses, adjoining land uses, and what the community has indicated in the past, I think there is ground.
I don't believe that. I'd have to, I don't know. Your thoughts?
There's grounds to turn it down based on adjoining land uses?
If the community was aware of the adjoining land uses that are permitted in this zone.
This meeting and the neighborhood meeting were noticed in accordance to law. The people who were required to notify about this, who were most likely to be impacted, were notified. None of them had any comment.
Now, who would that, I'm sorry, is it just all right if I ask her a question?
Well, I would appreciate all the information we can gather.
When you say they were notified, was there a radius?
300 feet.
So that's within that 500 feet?
Correct.
There was no neighborhood meeting.
There was no neighborhood meeting.
Well, nobody lives
Because
there.
how many letters did you send? 4?
Yeah.
Right, there were 4 letters sent, went to the town of Chino Valley, the Wilkinsons, JT's and Wells.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
Oh, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Can't that radius be, under Arizona state statutes, extended, or is that just the minimum?
That is the minimum required by law. That is the statutory distance that we have to measure.
But you can extend it further.
Yes, we can extend it further, but we did not extend it further because there was no reason to extend it further. There's no basis at this location to extend it further because this use And this land use zoning request is consistent with the surrounding properties.
Thank you.
I
I would
put-
have, excuse me, I just want to add one thing. I would have been remiss to bring this to you and had not mentioned the medical marijuana issue. That's the only reason I brought it up, is so that everyone was fully aware of all of the options that are available here. This could also be used as a motorsports facility with a conditional use permit. It could be an asphalt plant. It could be any number of things. It could be anything in the commercial heavy zoning district. But in fairness to the commission and in full disclosure, I wanted to make sure everybody understood exactly where this was and how that specific use could impact this property.
And I would have brought it up anyways as the chair because I know this is a concern of the community and it's only fair that everybody has their opportunity to
That's correct.
speak their piece.
But to the town has consistently used a 300-foot notification radius. We use that because that is the state statute, and if we vary from it, I have to have a very good reason. And rezoning a remote piece of commercial light property to industrial that's bounded by two sides on either currently zoned industrial property or property indicated for that the town owns for industrial zoning would not be a good basis.
I have one question from Mr. Wells' representative. Is the property currently under contract?
No, it's not under a purchase contract, no.
Accepted offer?
No, listing contract, that's all. Listing contract, not any kind of purchase contract.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Anybody
May I
else
just
have
may I-
questions?
may I
I'm
just
sorry,
add-
go
May I
ahead.
just add one thing?
Sure.
I don't think a delay serves anybody, and we did go through all the proper procedures and all the proper channels, and putting it on hold, I think is a disservice to Mr. Wells, quite frankly. Thank you again.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I think we morally a majority of us disagree morally, but legally see that we need to approve the zoning. That's my comment.
Mr. Bacon?
I have no further comments.
Commissioner Pasiak?
I'll make a motion if you want.
Let me go through and make sure everybody gets their last chance to talk. Commissioner Baker? Commissioner Van Wolfen? Okay. I would entertain a motion.
I move to forward zoning change 16-006, rezoning approximately 61 acres from commercial light to industrial to town council with a recommendation for approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there more discussion? I have something to say. Our hands were tied when the Medical Marijuana Act was passed in the state of Arizona. I don't think there's very many people here who want Chino Valley to turn into the pot-growing capital of America. However, that decision was taken away from us pretty much by the voters in Arizona by 1%. So for us to sit here and say we can't do this because morally we're against it is not our position as the commission. And if we delayed this, we'd just be right back here again, wasting a lot of time and aggravating the guy who wants to sell it to the point that maybe he'll bring a six-gun to the meeting and settle things in his own manner. I just think it's a waste of time for us to do anything else but do what we're legally bound to do, not necessarily morally. And I think in my own heart, I would like to vote against it, but I'm not going to do that because that's not my job here. Anybody else like to make a statement? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Aye or no? I'm opposed to it.
We have one person in opposition. Motion is carried.
Thank you. Mr. Granillo has not arrived yet, so we can either hear this case and forward it to council or table it until such time that he comes. He
I would
attends the
like
meeting.
to get this thing down the stream.
Gotcha. All right, now we need to go back to one.
Okay, we're going to return back to item 6A. Thank you, folks, for coming. Consideration of possible action to hold a public hearing and to recommend to the town council adoption of ordinance 16-824 to rezone approximately 2.49 acres of real property located approximately 448 feet north of Road 4.5 North and approximately 1,000 feet west of State Route 89, also known as Avapaque County Assessor Parcel Number 3060595M.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, or Chair Merritt. Before you, you have a request from Jose Granillo and the Granillo Family Trust to rezone the subject property shown here. This is currently a 2.49 acre parcel that he is asking to have rezoned to 1.6 acre minimum lot size so that he can divide the parcel and develop it for his family. Again, this is the surrounding zoning. You can see that the zoning ranges anywhere from AR5 to SR 1.6. This property was most recently rezoned in 2006 when this entire strip of land was rezoned from AR5 to these two were rezoned to the SR 1.6. This was not rezoned at the time, and Mr. Granillo would like to do that now. Hang on. Mr. Granillo held a neighborhood meeting on August 22nd, 2016 at 6 p.m. on site. 6 people were in attendance and no objections were made at that time. The town to date has received no comments from any of the surrounding property owners. The proposed rezoning is in conformance with the 2014 General Plan's future land use map, which places the property in a medium density and is in compliance with will be in compliance with the new zoning district of SR 1.6. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question about the map because I want to make sure I'm reading it correctly. The property in question.
Yes.
Directly west of that, there's a strip.
This.
Yes. That's the proper easement?
This actually, and it gets a little confusing, this strip here accesses this parcel back here.
Okay.
And this strip here accesses this parcel back here.
Okay.
This parcel has a private drive up this way. So these, basically, they're called panhandles or flagpoles, are a part of that parcel.
Okay.
They would have an access easement that would be split over the 095A parcel and these parcels so that they can get, they will have access to the property.
Okay, that's all I need to know. Thank you.
Basically duplicating on the other side what you've got to get to the back piece of property.
Correct. It's just an easement, yes.
This is a good rezoning. It makes sense to cut the property into 2 smaller pieces so at least it can be used. At the present time, it's basically an unusable piece of property.
Anybody else have any comments? I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a recommendation. I recommend that, is it a recommendation? Pretty sure it is.
Yes.
I recommend that ordinance 16-824 be forwarded to town council with a recommendation for approval.
Have a motion, have a second?
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Item 7, non-public hearing action items. I don't believe we have any.
We have none?
Discussion items.
None.
Public comments. Would you like to make a comment, seeing as how you're the public?
I would.
I identified myself as a real estate agent and a citizen. And I'd like to say, as a citizen, I really appreciate the way that you work. I think you really gave everything due diligence this evening, and you got presented with some decisions that took thought, and I appreciate that. And as Mr. Wells' agent, I'd like to thank you, and I appreciate, again, your due diligence and your thought on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments are welcome because we don't get to hear from the public much.
No, we don't.
I would, not like that anyway. I'd like to have a motion to adjourn.
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Commission.